Looking for fun and easy Diwali decorations? These giant marigolds are just use yarn and a crochet hook, and they are so fun for the festive season. Hi, it's Krista at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are making these giant marigolds for really fun and easy decor for Diwali or any time of year. You could even use a different colored yarn and just have fabulous pink and purple flowers around your bedroom. And if you're looking for other DIY Diwali decorations, check out my fabulous Torin decor. This is a huge banner that you hang over your doorway for Diwali. It is just yarn and it is so absolutely spectacular. It lasts forever. You don't have to throw it out and you can make it any size you like. So I'll be linking this in the description box below as well. To make your jumbo giant marigolds, you're going to need yarn, one ball or 100 grams of yellow yarn or orange, depending on what marigold you want to make. And you're going to need about 15 grams of green, so not too much just for this base down here. You'll also need an 8mm crochet hook, a pair of scissors, and about 70 stitch markers. If you don't have stitch markers, you can just grab a contrasting type of yarn. I'll show you how to do that in the tutorial if you don't have enough stitch markers on hand. You'll need a needle for sewing in one tail, and that's it. Here are the timestamps. You can jump back into where you left off, and let's get started. To start your giant marigold, we're going to triple our yarn. So grab the center pull from your ball, working from the center of your ball of yarn, the center of your cake. Lay it out flat, put your thumb on the one end, or your finger, and bring it back. So you'll end up with 3 strands of yarn. And here is our tail. So that is the same as our regular tail. We're going to treat it as the tail of our yarn. So make your slip knot any which way you normally do with all 3 strands. Shrink that down. Pop it onto your hook, and we're going to start chaining sets of 18. Before you lose that loop, or when it gets smaller, but you can still put your thumb and finger in, put your thumb and finger in to grab your working yarn, bring it through, and pull up a big loop. So I make my loop as wide as my arm span. You can't see it under the camera, but I'm making it about 1 meter. And then just lay it along. So this is how much I just made of triple yarn, quite a bit. And now we're just going to crochet that up into sets of 18. So I have done 3 chains so far. So now I'm going to chain 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. I'm going to roll my chain to the side. I want to look for those camel bumps along the back or those back loops. And I'm going to pop a stitch marker. Need a lot of stitch markers. Pop a stitch marker into that back loop or those back loops, and just close up that stitch marker. And we're going to do that all the way until our whole ball of yarn is used up. So this is great. You can sit down in front of the TV, YouTube video, podcast, and just keep making sets of 18. When your loop gets small, go ahead, grab your working yarn through that loop and pull up another arm's length of yarn. If you'd like to follow along with the written pattern, all of my patterns are available on my website, secretyarnery.com, and all of my patterns are written in plain English, just like I was sitting there right beside you. When you've chained 18, pop in a stitch marker to the back loop. and chain 18 more. When your loop gets small, put in your finger and thumb to pinch that working yarn, bringing it through and pulling an arm's length of yarn through. So you can just keep crocheting. Don't worry about that join where we've made our loop bigger. You won't even notice inside your chain. So then pause your video, keep working along, chaining 18 and popping in a stitch marker all the way along until you've used up your whole ball of yarn. If you run out of stitch markers or you don't have enough stitch markers, you need about 70 to make a full 100-gram marigold. An even easier way, instead of using all those stitch markers, is to just grab some pieces of yarn. So just keep your scraps of yarn handy, just a couple inch pieces, any color, as long as it's a different color than what you're using. And then before you do your stitch or your chain, so I need to do chain 18 for this pattern, so I finished chain 17. The next chain I do is chain 18. Easiest thing to do, just lay that bit of yarn underneath your crochet hook, just like that, and make your chain or your stitch that you need to do where you would have to be putting in your stitch marker. So that is my chain 18, and it is marked with a piece of yarn. How handy is that? Then when you get to it, you just have to pull it out instead of clipping up a stitch marker, unclipping a stitch marker, moving a stitch marker. You just pull the piece of yarn and you're done. It's so fast and easy. So let me just show you that again. 17, and for 18, I'm just going to lay that yarn underneath my crochet hook and make my 18th chain, just like that. And that is a super easy way to make your own DIY stitch markers. So I've chained up the whole ball of yarn and I just have this much left, so not enough for another chain 18. So then, push that out of the way. I'm just going to chain 1 to secure my yarn and pull that yarn through and snug that down. So that is all of our chain finished. Grab a scrap of contrasting yarn. This is probably about 3 feet of yarn folded in half. And it is just a little bit of a different shade. You could use the same color yarn if you want, but a slightly different shade is a little bit easier to tell which ones you're supposed to be pulling on. Fold your scrap yarn in half, and the folded end, we're just going to pop it through a closed stitch marker. We're just going to slip stitch, or just pull that yarn through to hold that stitch marker on the end of our yarn. Now grab your yarn needle and thread both tails into your yarn needle. I'm using a blunt tip for this because we're just gathering up our marigold petals now. So thread your needle, and starting at the first stitch marker, either end, it doesn't matter. This is the one I just finished. I'm going to pop that stitch marker out. And where that stitch marker was, I'm just going to grab one of those back loops, it doesn't matter which one, and just bring my yarn through. Just leaving that stitch marker end hanging. Loop your next stitch marker over. So all of our petals are going to be on one side. You can pop the stitch marker out first, or you can just thread one of those strands onto your needle, like that, and then pop your stitch marker out and thread your yarn through, like that. And we're going to do that for all of our petals. So I'm keeping the chain not twisted. So pretty side facing down, back loops facing up. And we're just going to work our way along. Just grabbing one of those strands, it doesn't matter. It's just going to help our marigold close more tightly. So thread the next one. Pop the stitch marker out. Make sure your chain isn't twisted. It doesn't matter really if your chain does twist. It's a marigold. Nobody's going to tell. But if you're a perfectionist, make sure there's no twists in your chain. And bring the next stitch marker over, grab one strand of that back loop, and thread your needle through, and pop out your stitch marker. So pause the video, keep working along, threading one loop of those back loops onto your needle, and hoping that your chain isn't twisted. And I'll meet you when you have threaded all of those, or one strand from each back loop onto your yarn. When you have threaded all of your petals onto your rope or onto your string, like that, we are ready to shrink it up. So we can just pull on both ends to get it as small as we can. And a trick, there's a normal shoelace tie like that. You want to do two of them. So it's like a hockey skate tie. That's how you tie your hockey skates so they don't slip as you're making the bow. So hockey skate tie, like a big pom-pom, and we're using 2 strands of yarn, so it's nice and snug. Now we got to find where we are. There we go, in the middle, and tie it again. I'm gonna make sure we're in the same spot. Now you can just knot it a few times, just to make sure. There we are. Now we're going to make the stem and the little cup underneath. To start the stem, we're going to triple up our yarn. So we want 3 strands, and we want to pinch the end with the tails, and then make a slip knot. We don't have to leave a very long tail. We're just going to be knotting these tails inside. Like that, and pop it onto your hook. And now I can go ahead and make more of this 3 strands, so I can just pull that longer loop through. And you can pull a lot through. Especially if you're working on a desk or a bed or a sofa, you can pull a lot of yarn through at once, as long as it doesn't get tangled. Now you can chain anywhere between 6 or 12. So I'm going to chain 10 for mine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And I'm going to roll my chain to the side. So we want to be looking into our back loops again. And into the second back loop, or anywhere you can slip stitch to, right here. I'm going to slip stitch into that second back loop. So just slide those stitches on, or push them onto your hook, and slip stitch. We're just going to work right back up our stem. So we're going to slip stitch into each of our back loops, just pushing each one onto our hook and bringing it through the loop, all the way up our stalk, and even into that last back loop right at the top. That is our last back loop to work into with our last slip stitch. So there is a short stem, and chain 1 to secure your yarn. Cut your yarn, all of it. Oop. And pull that hook up and your yarn through and snug that down. Now we have all of our tails. We have our 6 tails. We want to make a knot right at the top of our stem. Make sure it is right at the top of your chain and your slip stitches. It'll give us a nice little groove where we can cinch in our cup like that. And if your tails are long enough, I think I better cut one of those. That loop is a bit short. There. So most of the tails are long enough. We can just go around that knot again to make it a double knot. So there is our stem. Now we're going to do the cup. So we're going to put all those tails over our non-dominant hand and hold them down on our ring finger with our thumb. Wrap it around our top 2 fingers and around our 3rd finger, also underneath our thumb. Turn your hand over and you'll have a short strand and a long strand. Grab your crochet hook, hook side facing down, and slide it underneath the short strand and on top of the long strand. Bring the long strand underneath the short strand and point the hook towards yourself on the fat part of your hook. Release your thumb a little bit so that long strand can slide. And put your hook underneath the long strand, lifting up a little bit so you can pinch everything underneath your hook. Turn your hook and bring that through the loop. Let go of everything, and there is your magic ring. Chain 1 and just pull up a bigger loop like that. And now we're going to make 7 double crochets into the center of our ring, going over all of our tails. So wrap your yarn, 7 double crochets into the ring, going over your tails. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If your tails get short, just pull them so you have more tails. We don't want to lose our tails. There is 6. And now I need to pull up some more yarn and make my last double crochet. So there is our 7 double crochets, just like that. Now we can go ahead and grab our stem, and you can look for your pretty side of your cup. We want our pretty stitches to be out, so kind of flip it around so we're crocheting around the outside of our ring, and pop your stem through. So all of our pretty stitches are facing out, just like that. And our knot is inside the cup, if that makes sense. Now holding it along that ring, or just at the back of our ring, I'm going to cinch that magic ring shut around that knot, or underneath that little space, a skinny bit underneath that knot, and pull your tails really tight. The good thing about using 3 strands of acrylic is you can really pull. And now I can knot these tails from my magic ring. You can look around and see at the bottom, it's nice and tidy. So I can knot the tails from my magic ring and from my stem, and I can knot them as tight as I can. And now we're going to slip stitch to join, and we're going to slip stitch, back working on our cup, we're going to slip stitch into that long chain we made. Remember, we pulled up our hook to make a longer chain? That is the top of our first double crochet, right there. So we're just going to slip stitch into that first double crochet to join, a tight slip stitch, as tight as we can, just for a nice join, like that. So there's our cup and stem. And now chain 2. 1 and 2, and pull up a little bit of a bigger loop. Into the next stitch, 2 double crochets. Into the next stitch, 1 double crochet. So we're going to alternate doing 2 double crochets into a stitch and 1 double crochet into the next. So this is 2 double crochets into the same stitch, and then 1 double crochet into the next stitch. I'm just going to do that all the way around, just keeping those tails out of the way. So 2 double crochets into the next, one double crochet into the next, and 2 double crochets into the last. Pulling up more yarn if you need to. and our last double crochet into that stitch. Now I'm going to slip stitch into the top of our first real double crochet, so not into the chain, into our first real double crochet. So slip stitch. So there is our cup, and chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then into the next stitch right here, I'm going to slip stitch just into the front loop. So a front loop slip stitch and chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Skipping a stitch and into the second, a front loop slip stitch. It'll just help our leaves kind of go out instead of up. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Skipping a stitch and into the second, front loop only, so just those front 3 strands of yarn, slip stitch, and chain 4 again. We're going to do this all the way around our cap. 1, 2, 3, 4. Skipping a stitch and into the second, front loop only, slip stitch. Chaining 4, skipping 1, and into the second, front loop only, slip stitch. All the way around. Chain 4, skip 1, front loop only, slip stitch. And for our last one, we're going to do another chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can just slip stitch into that same stitch to join. Chain 1 to secure your yarn. And now cut your tail. You want to leave a long tail because we have to sew this together. It doesn't have to be all 3 strands. You want 1 long strand, like that. And then pull your hook up, your yarn through, snug that down to secure. Our tails, we can just tuck those inside to help plump out this cap. And if you have more scrap yarn, you could also put some scrap yarn in there to hold it out. But because we use 3 strands, it's pretty stiff on its own, so that is optional. So take that long strand you have, or pick a long strand, and thread it onto your yarn needle. Your other tails, we can just poke them inside our cup. So we're just going to use 1 strand to attach our cup. The rest are going to just be sitting inside. Take your flower, and this flower I joined with green yarn, and all my tails are coming from that one spot in the center. So that is the center of our flower. That's where we want to put the cap, centered around the middle, like that. And all these tails also can go into our cap for stuffing, like that. And we can poke them in more before we finish everything off. But center it around so your petals are even. And I want to attach it. I'm going to go down into each of these slip stitches we made, and then through the flower. So down into a slip stitch, and then just push your needle up into the next slip stitch. Just wiggle until it gets through where you want it to go. There's a lot of yarn in there. Like that. And then back down that same slip stitch in a different spot. And then up into the next slip stitch. We want it to be coming through some stitches. So back down and up through the next slip stitch. We're going to go around twice, so don't worry if it's not perfect this time. So down into a new spot in that slip stitch and up into the next. We want to be grabbing some of those petals every time. So down into a new spot and up into the next slip stitch. Now it's pretty secure, but we're going to keep going around. And when we get to those tails, we can also just make sure that they're tucked inside, and we can sew them in. Well, not sew them in, we can enclose them now. So grab one of these strands, right? This is right where we started, like that. I'm going to go in front of them and out the next slip stitch, just so there's yarn holding them in. So mine's feeling pretty secure. I have some yarn left, but it is all right. Now I'm just going to go back and forth from one side to the other. So just across the stem. And this is going to hide my tail. I'm just picking a different spot and then going back across to a different spot. And then you could just cut off your tail, just giving it a bit of a pull, and then letting it go. It'll shrink right back down into your stem, so you can't see it at all, and your flower is very attached. And there is your giant marigold, perfect for Diwali or any sort of festive season. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial as much as I did. I'm waiting for you in that video up there, and stay hooked.